and welcome back to the 5th episode of Raising Confident Athletes in the Digital Age. Today, Jeff and I have another guest, a yoga instructor for the club and parent. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so if you want to introduce yourself further, I know I gave like a very ground level introduction.
Yeah, so I have two kids who play for Fellsway, a daughter and a son. And Dave and I had a yoga conversation maybe at the really beginning of Fellsway. I was lamenting one day when we were sitting at practice, and I said, if all these parents are sitting here, we should offer them something like a yoga class or something. I said, I'll teach it. He goes, really? You teach yoga? Would you like to teach it for the club? And I was like, sure. So that's how we got started. So I've been practicing yoga for I'm going to say more than 10 years. And I got my certification maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I also work as a career coach. So I work with a lot of people to help them, young professionals mostly, to help them figure out how to find careers in alignment with what they want to do. So I think that covers most of the pieces, but I'm excited to, it's just fun to teach yoga for the kids and be part of a club like this. So.
Yeah, and you have two kids, both teenagers, I believe. How old are they?
Mm-hmm. 12 and 15.
Yeah, so you have a lot of interesting perspectives to offer for sure. I think maybe we'll talk about yoga first, but I think there's a lot that we could go into there. So just to start off, like, how did you get into yoga? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I started practicing yoga when my son, who's now 12, was born, and they offered at the local hospital, and I just needed a place to get away and be quiet, not have anybody like attached to me. So I started practicing, and I thought it would be great just to get out of the house, but I realized quickly that there were a lot of benefits to it, both physically and emotionally for me and for the rest of my family. So I started to find more classes to take, and then eventually decided to do my own certification so that I could teach and share yoga with others. So I have my 200-hour certification, and then I've taken some other classes specific to kids around meditation and just, sort of basics for teaching to kids, really different process than teaching to adults. But yoga has been a really big part of my life. And if you've been around me, I know, Kathryn, we haven't spent a lot of time together, but those that are around me and certainly my kids will tell you that this is really part of who I am and what I do.
Yeah, I think you brought up two really good things there. Maybe we could start off with the mental health benefits of yoga and kind of tie it in to how it relates to everything Jeff and I talk about this, because yes, there's a lot of physical benefits, but I think the mental probably even outweigh the physical.
Yeah, so I think, we live in a world that's moving really fast, and it's changed a lot over the last 18 months. And there's really no sign that things are going to go back to the way that they were. And I think I actually, in my coaching practice, I had 2 clients just today pause their coaching because of mental health issues that they're dealing with, aside from, it's hard to find a new career or a new direction if you can't sort of slow down and just pause. So a lot of what I do mental health wise is just to like focus on where you're at, like pay attention, notice what's going on around you. And when you hear me teach some of the soccer teams, we do a lot of that. Sometimes it's just breathing and noticing what your body is doing and how it's feeling. And once you can start to slow down, then you can start to focus on what's working or what's not working for you. So sometimes it's as easy as being in a really stressful situation and taking a few deep breaths, right? Because our bodies can't process being stressed and relaxed at the same time. So when we get stressed, we hold our breath, everything gets tense and tight. And if you take a few deep breaths, you're basically sending a message to your body that says, I'm okay. If I can take a deep breath, then life is okay. And so we can sort of trick our bodies into calming down just by taking a few deep breaths. So you'll often hear me say that. I say it to my kids all the time, like just slow down and take a breath, because we tend to move so quickly that you can't focus on anything, right? And I think we live in a society that busy is a badge of honor, right? Oh, I'm so busy, I have so many things to do. Really? Can you not take a few minutes and just go for a walk or take a deep breath or have a conversation looking somebody eye to eye and really just connecting with them?
Yeah, I think there's a lack of mindfulness. And I think all that present talk is mindfulness. And right now, Jeff talks a lot about outcome fever and all of that, and everyone's so focused on getting to the next step and getting their kid maybe the sports scholarship or whatever, that they're not focused on the now, right, Jeff?
No, 100%. I mean, I'm hearing you talk about breathing and checking in with your body. Yeah, it's basically gone with kids. I'm working with Northeastern Soccer now, and it's at a very fundamental level. Kids are out of touch with their hearts, with their bodies, with their voice. It's a crisis. I feel bad. I come on here every week and like the voice of doom and gloom. But I think I've done yoga back in the day. I was going every Wednesday to a class in Concord, New Hampshire. It really changed my life. And I think it's great. I'd love to learn more about your practice and I mean, every kid I meet with individually, I tell them, you got to do some yoga, man. You got to start by doing some breathing. I give them the whole spiel on rest and digest versus fight and flight.
I think we both also work in a really interesting niche, especially when we look at working with kids. And I was wondering, for both of you, you can both answer this, how do you get kids, and especially like teenagers, to kind of digest and take this stuff on? Because I think some of it, I could see kids being like, oh, yoga, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to talk about my feelings, or XYZ.
The boys are still, with all the this generation now, they're the most accepting. They don't see color, they don't care. But the boys are still resistant to touchy-feely stuff. But I just tell them, my own approach is, I'm a Boston tough guy with a bad accent, and I love it. And I just tell them, you need it. Once they do 10 minutes of yoga, they love it. You have them shut their eyes and do a little guided thing, they love it. Their imaginations are still intact, but they're just harder to get to. And they all, they're pushing buttons for 4, 5, 7 hours a day, killing creatures on the screen, and that doesn't help either.
Yeah, I'll share an example. I think that was a great segue. The first class I taught for Kevin's high school team, I don't know what year they are, but Kevin's like sort of dragging them over, and we were on the field and working on where they're playing soccer tennis, right? That was sort of our adopted space because it was flat and easy. And so Kevin's saying like, okay, guys, like we're going to go do yoga with Kim. And one of the guys is like, coach, like, I don't do yoga, right? This isn't my thing. And Kevin goes, oh, come on over and sit down and be quiet. You're going to learn something from Kim. And then Kevin's right there with us, right? And that's the cool part. A lot of the coaches have participated in my yoga classes, which is really fun. So this particular group of Kevin's comes in, and I get them seated, and I ask them all to close their eyes and take some deep breaths, right? And half of them are like, one eye open, like, is anybody else closing their eyes? And but then I, kind of walk them through, like Jeff said, sort of a visualization, like just imagine where you're at and soften your shoulders and unclench your jaw, and all these places that we hold tension that we don't even realize we do because it's such a part of who we are today. I'll tell you, those guys by the end of the class were like, I laid them down in Shavasana. They're like, oh, this is good. Kevin, when do we get to do this again? So I agree with you. It's something that we don't always recognize that we need. And it's so simple to take some time and just slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially for those guys, Jeff, having a role model like you, or even Kevin's team having a guy in front of them doing it. But I think beyond that, at Fell's Way, that's what we try and do, is to just put people in front of them that are not the crazy adults who are living life in a bit more of a sane way. Good role models in a good community is really all that matters.
There's no question. I mean, I think as a community of adults, we have to have the courage to name this problem, and we have to have the courage to help children get out of the mental rat race that they've been forced into. I was with Sauhegan as a high school in New Hampshire. In Amherst, I was with their soccer kids yesterday, and I'm not getting any younger, so these kids look like they're in middle school to me. I mean, all these freshmen, these young boys, and their whole lives ahead of them, and they're just so tense. Kim, I wish you were there. I can show them.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get you in there.
I'd be happy to.
I know a few, poses and that, but they resonate with anything you can do to calm them down. They're all over.
Yeah, right. Just giving them, like even what we talked about with Dave, the tools in their toolbox to learn to cope with things. And I think, I don't know, we were brought up in this busy culture and generation. I think there was a lack of vulnerability. And so now they're kind of having to take that back. And it's hard.
100%. Yeah, 100%. But they still crave connection with themselves and with their friends. You can get them there. It just takes a while. You have to have some really focused, activities for them, conversations, and you have to realize it's going to take a while. But the more parents that we can get in this soccer club to come on here and talk about it, come down the field, and it's just about reconnecting. I mean, if we think about our childhoods, Kim's and mine, I don't know how frantic and digitized yours got, Kathryn, but you just have visceral memories of sleeping at your buddy's house and looking at clouds and playing up the playground and quotes wasting time with your friends, and those are the things that build. Those are the invisible things that build, not character, but build confidence and identity. And they're pretty much out the window now. So we have to do it deliberately.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much doing and not enough being, right? There's so much that you need to get from this place to that place. And, I look at my schedule for September and, my kids are on, 2 or 3 different teams, and there's a lot of moving parts. And it's really important to factor in some time that you can just chill, right? To just be kids. And, I was on vacation last week, and it wasn't a typical vacation for what we did pre-COVID, but we got away for a few days, and we had a few days at home. And there were days that I thought, I could do some work, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just sit and read a book. Or I spent 3 hours doing a jigsaw puzzle the other day. No audio, no music, no nothing, right? I just needed to sort of, like, for me, that was my relaxation. And I think we all have different ways of, it could be gardening, it could be going for a walk, it could be hanging out with a friend, but I don't think we are good at taking time for ourselves with the way that the world moves right today.
Yeah, I think it comes down to us being out of touch with, like Jeff said, our bodies and our minds. And I think, I don't know, I grew up in such a culture where it was like, you can never quit. If you make a commitment, you have to stick to that commitment. And I do understand that, like, you don't quit on a team mid-season by any means, but if you sign up, you have an art class and you have a soccer team and you go to school full time, it's not practical for a kid, like a young kid, to be able to do all that all the time and then still be able to take time for themselves, take time for leisure and fun. So we talked about this on the episode with Amy about just teaching your kids that it is okay to say no sometimes, and it is okay to listen to your body and say, okay, my body's not feeling this day. Maybe I can't work out today, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. You made me think of a kid I see. I work with the Niagara University hockey team, and there's a guy on this team. His brother's an NHL draft pick, and the kid's a great human being, but he never rests. He's trying to chase his brother. He's trying to chase the dream. He doesn't rest. So, and he's so hard on himself, The kids don't see it. You just have to point it out to them and help them calm down, slow down. Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't realize that you're doing it until you actually pull yourself out of it, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got a different perspective, like, wow, this is really crazy. And the kids have responded really well for Feldsway. I think I would say that almost all of the kids have benefited in some way, and look forward to their next sessions. And like I said, most of the coaches have popped in to, get some stretching in too, but to just be able to slow down and notice, like, how does your body feel today? Like, how does it feel to be in your body today? What hurts? What's tight? What needs a little extra love or attention today, right? It doesn't have to be go, go, go. We're not always working at peak performance. And sometimes you need to be able to pause and notice what needs help so that you can move forward in a more deliberate and mindful way.
Yeah. So do you have ways that maybe the kids who even come into your sessions, once a week during the fall and spring season or whatever it is, how can they implement these practices in their own lives during the off season or just at home when they're not doing something?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm doing sessions with the teams every other week. So they get about 4 sessions of season, fall and spring. And as I walk through my class with them, I have 45-minute sessions. I tell them like, hey, this is something you can do when you're sitting in math class and you feel like things aren't going well today, or you're on the sidelines and the game isn't going the way you want. The cool part about breathing, and I do lots of different breathing exercises. We do some, and breathing exercises are cool because they can either be energizing, right? They can bring more oxygen into our bodies and make us feel like we have more energy, or they can be relaxing and calming. And sometimes we need that. And to notice when you need one versus another, you're sitting in front of Zoom calls all day, you're sitting in a classroom, you need to get up and breathe and get some oxygen flowing. If you're, coming off the field and you're all stressed out, then you need to be able to calm down. So I often talk through that during my whole class. Like, this is something you can do. The other cool part I was going to say about the breathing exercises is that I could teach them to you and you could practice them and nobody knows you're doing them, right? It's not like you're doing some like fancy yoga pose, but you could be taking some deep breaths right now and I don't even know it. It's like a secret, but it's cool. It's like a superpower that you can kind of keep in your back pocket when you need to have it. So I'm constantly doing that. If you're, in a place and you're ready to take a test somewhere and you're feeling overwhelmed, close your eyes for a minute and just notice, like take a deep breath in and notice what you hear around you, right? We do a lot of coming to your senses. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you taste? What is the temperature of the air on your skin or your clothing? Like, how does that feel? Like really connecting with your body. I also do visualizations with them around like taking them to their happy place, wherever that might be. It could be a tree house, it could be their bedroom, it could be the beach, it could be someplace they've never been before. Sometimes if you just close your eyes and imagine that they're there for a minute, you can sort of let the stress sort of soak out of your body a little bit. So I invite either or both of you to come to my classes. They're really fun. And they're really flexible, right? Depending on where the kids are at and feeding off of their energy. Sometimes they're, super crazed. Sometimes they're coming in after a long day and they just need to be able to shift gears. So I play off of, where they're at. Now some of them have their favorite poses. Can we do this? Can we try that? So I'll work in whatever you want, as long as you're getting what you want out of it. And I can weave in my little messaging through it. There are lots of ways you can take that home with you off the mat.
Yeah, so now maybe I want to talk about some advice. So first, advice for maybe a Fellsway Wanderers parent to help their kid implement these things at home and to implement mindfulness.
Yeah, give them some space. Work it into your routine. It could be something you do before you go to bed at night, or when you get up in the morning, or even while you're sitting in the car, right? We always, you get so stressed out at a red light. It's not green. We have to keep going. All right, well, while you're at a red light, can you think of 3 things you're grateful for right now, right? Can you take 3 deep breaths? So it doesn't have to be something that we, you don't have to get to the soccer field in order to play soccer. You can, do yoga, practice yoga through your life anywhere. So giving people space to do that. Work it in before while you're brushing your teeth at night, right? Can you think of 3 things you're grateful? I always close my eyes when I brush my teeth. Can you, think of 3 things you're grateful for while you're brushing your teeth at night? Can you make that part of your dinner conversation or on your way to or from practice if you're sitting in the car? So I think there's lots of little tidbits that you can sort of weave into your life, but recognizing that it's something that can be done is really simple. I have an ebook and I can share the link in the show notes here called Slowing Down to Get Ahead. And I have 5 tips about that you can implement really easily into your everyday life. So I'd be happy to share that with you and the parents and the kids. It's kid friendly too. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'd be happy to share that. And I think, so much of it is setting a positive example, because regardless if you mean to or not, your kids pick up on that messaging about just needing to be go, go, go. And a lot of times they think, okay, that is good. Rest is not good. It is good to be busy, just based on these subliminal things that they learn from their parents. Okay. And then lastly, I would say you are a Fellsway Wanderers parent, and we just had Dave on and we talked a lot about watching your kids fail and how hard that is. And I know you've been with us since the beginning. So how was that adjustment for you? How were you able to make it a positive thing for you, for your kids, and maybe some advice to parents who are struggling with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I listened to Dave's podcast actually with my daughter last night, and it was interesting because so if you know my daughter, and some of you listening will know, she's not the most competitive person. So like she doesn't care if she wins or loses. She likes to get out and have a good time. So I think part of that's her personality. And my son's probably there too. I mean, it's hard when you play a lot and you never win. But I think the process of connecting and learning is so important. So if there are parents out there that are struggling with that, like let your kids have fun. I know Dave always says this, it's, the only thing that you can say to your parent or to your kids afterwards is, I had fun watching you play. So I think that's part of the piece. It's not always about winning, right? We don't always win when we go to school, and it's, you can still learn things in the process and build, connections with your team and, become a better person. And all of the things that Fellsway is doing are helping the whole person, right? Not just the soccer player.
Yeah, well, I was actually at, I think, your son's team's Memorial Day tournament where they won their
cold rain.
Yeah, but they won their final game, correct? Or they won one of the first game in forever in a Memorial Day tournament.
Yeah, I think so.
And what was awesome about it was it had been like their first one. And yes, they were excited, but it wasn't this massive freak out thing. It wasn't this huge reaction. And it's almost like they had a similar reaction that they would have had to losing. Like it wasn't there, it was very neutral. It was not this crazy thing. And I think that's what's so awesome is, like Dave said, a lot of times if a kid hasn't had that pressure put on them by a parent and they come out having lost by a few goals, usually you're not going to see them walk off the field terribly upset. The same thing with winning, I think you can say.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you asked me that, I was like, oh, did they win the last one?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Both my kids are also goalkeepers. So that just adds another level of, another layer, I guess, to the piece, right? So they're often they can be the ones that were the, prevented the goal or let the goal in that caused them to lose. So they both have really healthy attitudes. Like it came through several other players before it got to me.
Yeah,
I wasn't the only one. So I think, does that come through their personality? Does it come through something I did? Is that the way that the training is a combination of whatever? I don't know. But yeah, I think, I was at my daughter was at a tournament in Vermont in June, and they won their first games of the season. And boy, was that exciting. And the cool part about that was that it wasn't, almost half of the girls, I think, on the team had scored at some point during the tournament. So it wasn't just one or two players that they were feeding, right? Everybody had a chance to do it. And it was that was exciting. So that was a special weekend for lots of different reasons. That might be a different podcast, but so yeah, I think, just getting out there and playing and connecting is really cool for the kids.
Yeah, I think a big takeaway is that it's all about the rhetoric you set around those things as a parent and as leader, right? So your kid's not going to feel the pressure to win or the pressure when they lose, or even in the mindfulness area, just be careful of your rhetoric, be intentional with the messages you're sending to your kids.
Exactly.
All right, anything to add, Jeff?
I have, thank you, Bean. I have one thing to add. I think that the culture has changed so quickly so as to have taken people by surprise, and for parents at home. And I'd like to try this with you two ladies and see what happens right now. Think of the person in your childhood that made you experience joy and wonder and love and curiosity. For me, it's my Uncle Murray. So when I was a little kid and he had a convertible Oldsmobile, he'd tell me to set the radio to 600 and push the lighter, and we would take off of Route 128 any second now. And he just, through my teenage years and into my 20s, just loved me and kept my imagination going. Do you guys have memories of a person like that?
Yeah, I would say it was my grandfather. Always was creating new, imagination things. He had a car that we were always driving to, make believe places and stuff too. So it was kind of a neat memory, but yeah, lots of fun memories creating things, and not necessarily doing things that were like out of a box or on, certainly nothing online when I grew up, but I have memories of like painting his picnic table with water, like time and time again, right? Just like simple things, but we always had some neat adventures without really ever going anywhere. It's kind of fun.
Kathryn, you have an example?
Yeah, I think the time I grew up was interesting because when I was maybe like up until I was 10, the technology didn't really interfere. So that was nice. So I did get to spend those like formative childhood years with my imagination, and I spent a lot of time in nature. So I'm not so sure it was like one specific person, but I grew up I have a place up in Maine, and we would go hiking all the time, and there was no phones on the trails, and I grew up around a bunch of their friends, as we didn't have much family around. And so those were kind of like, they became like my friends, and I'd lead us up the trail and walk us through the hike, or I'd want to go skiing. And I remember one time I put pieces of paper under my feet in the kitchen. I was like, look, I'm skiing just like my dad. And that's when they were like, okay, I guess we got to take her, huh? But I think for me, it was growing up in touch with nature that was huge for me.
So I would encourage parents at home to think about your personal memory. And again, we've been overtaken by this wacky email, crazy, overwhelming junk going on. Try to make sure your kid has moments where he or she can connect with the same way you connected with the people that did that for you, because I see so many kids that they're stricken with outcome fever. Imagination's getting smaller. The achievement drive's getting bigger, and that's no way to live. It's just no way to live.
I think that's an awesome exercise that maybe everyone at home can try. And if you have something that we didn't say that you felt was really helpful for you growing up, and you want to share that and give people some ideas, we can definitely share those on the next episode. But I think that's a really cool concept, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. I always give my contact info. We want to hear from parents. Jeff at jefflevincoaching.com, 603-496-0305. Want to hear from parents. We'd love to have you on here. Shoot the breeze on the side, whatever.
Yeah, Kim, if you want to tell people where they can find you as well, whether that's for yoga services or your professional coaching, whatever.
Yeah. Kim at Kim Bilawchuk, KIM, B as in boy, ILAWCHUK.com. And my website is the same. I'm actually in the process of combining my yoga and coaching and mindfulness websites together. So, but you can reach me there at kimbilawchuk.com or Kim at kbcareercoach.com.
Yes, and her ebook will be linked in the description.
Thank you.
The info about Fellsway Wanderers will be in the description. And if you want to reach me, it's KATHRYN at fellswaywanderers.club. Again, you don't have to come on if you don't feel comfortable. Send in a message, send in a question. Yeah, leaving us a review really helps. It helps other people to find us. If you could share this podcast, that would be awesome. We really want to help as many people as possible and reach new audiences and get new perspectives. You can also follow and subscribe to be notified when we upload a new podcast on whichever platform you choose. If you want to be updated when they're coming, you can check out our Instagram, Fellsway Wanderers FC. And that's pretty much all from us. Thank you for coming on, Kim.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That was awesome. Thank you, guys.
See you guys.